Tēnā koutou katoa. No mai, haere mai. Welcome to the VMCF webinar. It's great to see so many people here. So we are the Vision Mātauranga Capability Fund team, and we're looking forward to telling you more about the fund and helping you in your application journey. I'll open our meeting by giving the MB karakia. Tawhia tomana, kia mau, kia maya. Kahuri taku aro ki te pai kahurangi. Ke reira te oranga moku. Ma mahitahi ka ora ka puawai. A mātou mahi katoa. Ka pono ka tika. Tihe mauri ora. So we'll start with some introductions now, just so you get to know everyone who's here presenting. Ke hikina whakatutuki aho e mahi ana ko Camilla tōku ingoa. I work for MB in the contestable investments team, and I'm the fund lead for the Vision Mātauranga Capability Fund.
Tēnā koutou, ko Imogen tōku ingoa. I work with Camilla and I'm the second fund lead for VMCF.
Max?
Kia ora, ko Max Kennedy aho, ko kai whakahaere putaio contestable team at MB. I'm Max Kennedy. I run the contestable team here at the Ministry, and the Vision Mātauranga Capability Fund is run out of our team.
Kai Marie, tōku ingoa. I'm the System Administrator in the System Operations team. I've built the application in the portal and will be able to answer any questions that you have about the application.
Kia ora. Pax Rattenberry is also a member of our team, but unfortunately she couldn't be with us today. But she manages our email inbox and the 0800 number, so you might receive some emails from her or hear her friendly voice on the phone.
The kaupapa of this webinar is to tell you more about the fund and give you the information that you need to apply. We have quite a lot of information to cover, and so for clarity, we've split it into 5 sections. We will give an overview of the fund, what criteria you need to meet to be eligible, how you apply, what happens after you submit your proposal, and outline some extra resources you can use to help develop your proposal. In each section, we'll start with an overview, then go through the details. As we go, feel free to ask questions using the Q&A function. We will have time for questions at the end of each section, as well as at the end of the webinar. We'll be answering questions that are related to the kaupapa of today's webinar. We can always have discussions after the webinar if you have any questions that are not covered today. The full name of the fund is Te Pūnaha Hihiko Vision Mātauranga Capability Fund, but we often refer to it as VMCF for short. The call for proposals is one of the most important documents, sometimes referred to as the CFP. We'll be recording this webinar and posting it on our website along with the slides, so you don't need to worry about taking notes as we talk.
Great. And just one question has come through around the Zoom settings during the meeting. Your mics are not on, your cameras are not on. We can't hear anything you're saying, and definitely can't see you as well. But you can, yeah, if you want to ask us anything just as we're going along, type it into the Q&A function. So now we'll get into content. So what is the Vision Mātauranga Capability Fund? So overall, the fund aims to build capability by establishing new connections between Māori organizations and the science system. Projects can be up to 2 years and can receive up to $250,000. We run the fund once a year, and we've been running it since 2013. The fund is currently open, and proposals are due by 12 noon on the 11th of November, which is only 1 month away. So as I said before, the aim is to build capability and new connections. So we're looking at building skills and networks between Māori organizations and the science and innovation system, which in this case is a particular research organization or individual researcher. The fund also helps increase understanding of how research can contribute to the aspirations of Māori organizations. So with the assistance of this fund, Māori are able to use a kaupapa Māori approach to the mahi that they're undertaking, which means that traditionally recognized practices such as kaitiakitanga, mana whenua, mana whakahaere, and mana motuhake are all upheld. Projects need to have at least one Māori organization partner and at least one research organization partner or individual researcher partner. Our fund delivers against the 4 themes of the Vision Mātauranga policy. These are Indigenous innovation, taio, Mātauranga, haora oranga. You'll need to address one or more of these themes in your proposal. However, our fund is not a health-focused fund, so you cannot solely address the haora aspect of the haora oranga theme. If your proposal is really health-focused, you'll actually be better fit for the Ngā Kano Hikatea grants from the Health Research Council. So you can't solely address haora, but you can solely address oranga, or social well-being. So the way that our fund works is that we've got 2 different schemes within it. The Connect scheme builds new connections between 2 partners, and the placement scheme focuses on the development of a particular individual. So we're looking for proposals with new connections between partners. Existing relationships are eligible, but the proposal needs to clearly go above business as usual for the relationship and clearly build capability. Both schemes focus on building capability, but the Connect scheme is more at a project team level, and the placement scheme is focused on an individual. For the placement scheme, the placement can either be from the research organization or the Māori organization, and they get placed into the other partner organization. So I'll just give you some examples here. So for example, a Connect scheme could bring together, let's say, a land-owning Māori organization with a research organization that has experience in remote sensing. The organizations could come together and develop a land management plan based on remote sensing data, traditional knowledge of land use in the area, the values and aspirations of the Māori organization. So in this example, the capability is built across the project team at both organizations. A placement scheme could have a member of a Māori organization be placed in a research organization with expertise in water science. So the placement then could learn about water sampling and management protocol and be mentored by scientists in the research organization. Then they could bring this expertise back to their whānau and develop a water sampling and monitoring regime in their own rohe. In this example, the capability is built within the individual and brought back to their organization. So we've got about $4 million available to fund new proposals in this funding round. Proposals can be up to 2 years in length. And if your project is only 1 year, you can apply for up to $150,000. But your project is up to 2 years, or between 1 and 2 years, you can apply for up to $250,000. So just note that we've changed this from last year, and that you can apply for the same amount of funding for both the Connect and the placement schemes. You don't have to apply for 2 years of funding, and you don't have to apply for the full amount of funding. So I'll just walk you through some key dates you need to know for the round. So the fund is now open, and it closes on the 11th of November at 12 noon. So proposals are then assessed for their eligibility for the fund, which we'll talk through later, and eligible proposals are aligned to assessment panel members for individual assessment. The panel then comes together and makes their funding recommendations to MB, and MB makes the final funding decision. You'll be notified of the outcome in April of 2021, and successful proposals will begin their work program in June of 2021. So that was quite a bit of content. So we'll just have a quick stop now for some questions. If you have any, please put them through the Q&A function. We'll probably spend about 5 minutes answering now and then continue with the presentation. And we'll have a longer Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So we have one question, which is, can you please detail the fund that is best to go to if it is only Haora focus? And those are the Ngā Hikatea grants that are from the Health Research Council. For the placement, do you have to have already identified the individual for the placement? Yes, we actually really ask that you name the individual who's going to be your placement, because that's a really important part about assessing your proposal. And so we need to be able to assess that person and how their capability is going to be built. And you can name them in the project team section of your proposal. Are there support organizations to support Māori? I guess kind of from what I'm getting from this question, both partners in the project should be supporting each other. And so if there's any resources that the research organization or individual researcher has, that they're able to offer the Māori organization as a part of supporting the project, that's probably the best way that you can get support. Next question is, so just to confirm, you can solely address the oranga social well-being, but you cannot only address haora. So if you address that theme, you can address it just by itself and not the other ones, but it must be in a social well-being sense. It can't be with a haora focus. So can you give a statistical overview of number of applications in relation to successful projects? Yep, so in previous years, we funded about 30 projects each year, but it really depends on how many proposals we get in and what funding they're asking for. This year, we've changed the amount of funding you can request, and so it's actually going to be quite different, and it'll really depend on how many applications we get in. One question, can we establish an IMS portal login now? Yes, please do it. Absolutely, yes. We've got a how-to guide on our website, and that'll take you through it. It can take a few days, and it's really, really helpful for you to go in and check out the portal so you know what you have to fill in before you get to, like, don't leave it to the last day. You don't want to go in and realize it's actually a ton of work. So please get your IMS login now. We'll talk through that a little bit later on, but there's also guidance on our website. Okay, I'll answer one more question. Is there a requirement for the new relationship, mainly an emphasis for the Connect scheme? No, it's actually, it's an emphasis for both of the schemes. And so our fund is all about building capability. And we often find that proposals that have existing relationships don't score very well because the capability and the connection is already built. And so if you want to have an existing relationship for either the Connect or the placement, you really need to show how you're going above and beyond business as usual and building capability for both organizations or for that individual. Okay, so that is a number of questions. I see we've got quite a few here, but I'll try to go through and answer a lot of these kind of as we go further on throughout the webinar. And again, as Imogen said, if there are any that we don't get to today, just reach out to us. Our email address is throughout this, just vmcf@mb.govt.nz. We're happy to have any chats after the webinar. So I'll pass it over to you, Imogen.
Great. So next we will talk about what criteria you need to meet to be eligible for the fund. You'll need to meet all of our eligibility criteria, which is set out in the investment plan and call for proposals. One of the partners in the project will need to provide 10% of the MB funding as co-funding, either cash or in kind, and proposals must be submitted to us by noon on the 11th of November through our online application portal. The eligibility criteria are the things that you are required to meet to be funded through VMCF. These are all outlined in the call for proposals, and we'll just talk through some of the most important ones. You'll need at least 2 partners in the project. One must be a research organisation or individual researcher, and the other must be a Māori organisation. The research organisation or researcher must have the capability to conduct research in science and technology or related activities. The Māori organisation is an organisation that identifies as being Māori and uses or wants to use research in science and technology. It cannot overlap with government-funded activities, so if you're already being funded for this work by another government organisation, we cannot fund it. This includes the National Science Challenges. You cannot include full-time students in your proposal, as the fund is not for developing school programs or funding full-time students. If you want to do a project with students or with a strong educational focus, you should look at the Unlocking Curious Minds Fund, which is also administered by MB. Again, you must address one or more of the Vision Mātauranga themes that we discussed earlier, and you cannot solely address holder. The fund also has a co-funding requirement. One of the partners involved in the project must provide a minimum of 10% of the requested MB funding as co-funding. This can be provided as cash or in-kind co-funding. Cash co-funding is cash that contributes directly to the proposal, and in-kind co-funding is a non-cash contribution, such as the use of equipment, staff time, overheads, or access to data. For example, if you're requesting $200,000 from us, then one of the partners must provide $20,000 as co-funding. It cannot be split across partners. The partner providing the co-funding can meet this requirement as a combination of cash and in-kind. You can provide more than the minimum amount, but you must at least meet the 10% requirement. Any questions about eligibility or co-funding? Again, we'll spend about 5 minutes answering your questions.
Yep, so we see there's quite a number of questions coming through. Questions about Unlocking Curious Minds. Yeah, it's been affected by COVID. We don't know when we'll start back up again, but just keep an eye out. You can sign up for alerts to learn more about when that fund is going to reopen on the MB website. For the definition of a student, it's any full-time student is the definition that we have. And the reason that we have this is that we are not an educational fund. Our fund is a research and science fund focused on building capability. And so it's just purely because of the way that this funding is given out that we are not for education and not for funding student stipends. That's the reason that we have that eligibility requirement. Please explain the definition of a Māori organization. It's a Māori organization that identifies as Māori. And you can have, there's one question about the partners. So you can have more than one research organization involved or more than one Māori organization involved. So there can be a number of partners in the project, but the minimum is that it has to have one research organization or individual researcher and one Māori organization. Can the Māori organization have a research component if it is still partnering with another research organization? Yes, absolutely. That is totally fine. Can you define the status of a Māori organization, please? So if you're going to be the actual applicant yourself, so if you're going to enter into the contract with MB, you need to be a legal entity. But if you're just going to be the partner on the project, you don't need to be a legal entity. You just need to be an organization that is defined and identifies as Māori. Where's specialized part? So in the placement scheme, eligibility is for Māori students or scientists. Yep, so it'll need to be someone who is not a full-time student. So you can't have any full-time students on your project team and you're not eligible. They are not eligible to be the placement. In this case is the experience. So if you're an applicant who doesn't have as much experience with your application, we still do expect the same standards of those who might have a bit more experience, because our fund is a contestable process. So we fund the best proposals that we get every year. So everyone who's applying needs to meet the criteria, meet them well, and submit a good application, because that's how you're going to get funding. So you're not eligible if you are receiving government funding for this exact same work program, but you are eligible to ask anyone to help with your project in your development process. If that answers some of the questions that are coming through here. Any guidance around seniority of project leads? So how senior does your project lead have to be? So when we look at a project team, which we'll go through in a little bit, it'll just help us figure out your ability to deliver. And so it's really about the whole project team overall. And if you have younger people who are in your team, you'll want to see that those are being mentored quite well. Same with placements. You want to make sure that they have really good mentors that are coming in and giving them the time they need to be mentored in their placement. Okay, I think I've answered a number of these. How many applications do you get each year? In the past years, we've got about 50 to 55 a year, but this year it definitely could change because we've kind of changed our outreach with the fund.
Camilla,
So,
you might want to mention how many got funded as well out of those 55.
Yep, so last year we funded about 30, which I mentioned earlier. But again, we have changed the way that we're giving out the funding this year. So we're actually giving out much bigger projects, and so we'll be funding less projects this year overall. Okay, so I think we'll just have a quick break there and continue on with the presentation. I definitely see there's some other questions coming through, but they're kind of hopefully been answered by the general answers I've been giving. So now we're going to talk you through how you actually apply for funding. So very importantly, there's no application form. The application is submitted through an online portal, and you fill out all the sections there and submit it through the portal. So filling out the sections in the portal does take time. You need to give yourself plenty of time to do this. You only have 1 month to go. Use the call for proposals and assessment guidelines as you develop your proposal. There are documents to help you with this process, and both are on our website. There are 4 assessment criteria that you need to address, and each is of equal importance. You'll also need to declare if you have any conflicts of interest with our assessors. So again, applications are submitted through an online portal called IMS. There's no application form for the fund. It's all done in the portal. You need to get a login for the portal if you don't already have one. So we have a how-to guide to help you through this on our application support page on our website. It can take a few days to get a login, so make sure you get one early. You want to be able to go into the portal and look over the different sections in advance, so you'll know what you need to enter. Use the call for proposals and assessment guidelines to develop your proposal. The call for proposals gives you an overview of the fund and then walks you through each section of the portal. The assessment guidelines are what the assessors use to assess your proposals, so you'll be able to see exactly what they're going to be looking for. Most importantly, don't leave your proposal to the last minute. It takes time to get your login and to fill out all the sections in IMS. You don't want to miss out because you didn't give yourself enough time to fill out the portal. So like I said, we have 4 criteria that your proposal will be assessed against. First is the development of people, relationships, and skills. But a key question here is, to what extent are longer-term skills, capability, networks, relationships, and research opportunities likely to emerge and be sustained from the proposed work program? So, will your proposal go above business as usual for the organizations involved? Will the project develop a new partnership? Will capability be developed? Next is ability to deliver. So here we're looking for the likelihood that the proposed outputs of the work program will be achieved. This includes mandate to conduct the work, appropriate resourcing for everyone involved, expertise of team members, and risk identification and mitigation. Third is Vision Mātauranga outcomes. So this is really all about benefit to Māori and how you've addressed the Vision Mātauranga themes that you've selected. Questions here include, will the outcomes of the project deliver for the aspirations of the Māori organization? Will the capability and leadership of the Māori researchers be developed? How well does the proposal address the themes selected? Fourth is the benefits to research, science, and technology. Here we're looking for how the proposal will increase skills, capability, networks between Māori and the science and innovation system. So questions like, will the project increase understanding of how research and technology can contribute to the aspirations of Māori organizations? Will the project generate future research or technology relevant to the Vision Mātauranga themes? So here, when you're filling these out, we suggest that you look at the assessment guidelines. We clearly explain how the assessors will assess these criteria, so you'll understand what they're looking for. This will help you develop your answers to each of the criteria. So here's a quick overview of the sections in the portal. This is also outlined in the call for proposals. You'll need to fill out basic information like title, contact details, and you'll need to provide information about how you meet our eligibility criteria. You'll need to tell us whether you've received any past VMCF proposals. If you have, you'll need to give a short explanation about how they relate to this one. And if you have any past proposals, this new proposal will need to go above and beyond the previous ones. It can't just be a continuation of the work because that's not going above business as usual. Next, you'll need to give a short summary of the project. This is where you can give us and the assessors a quick intro to what you're going to be doing. Next to the assessment criteria, which is what I just explained before, you really need to nail these because they're the 4 criteria your proposal will be scored against. They're all the same weighting, so they're all important to make sure you address well. The assessors will also look at the other aspects of your proposals to give your scores. It won't just solely be based on your answers here. We also have a table where you need to list your project team. The project team will give strength to the assessment of your ability to deliver, so make sure you include everyone. And for the key people in the project, include a CV or description of their expertise. You also need to give a budget of how you're going to use the requested funding. So last year's assessment panel gives some feedback on what makes a really good proposal. This feedback is also provided on our website with much more detail, so I really suggest that you go and spend some time reading through it as you develop your proposal. The overall advice is to connect and engage with your partner organizations, to clearly describe how the proposal was co-developed, to center placement schemes on a named placement individual, to clearly describe the Vision Mātauranga outcomes, describe how you're going to disseminate project findings, demonstrate awareness of ethical considerations, and include a intellectual property management plan. So you will own all the IP that comes out of this project. MB doesn't own it. So you and your partner need to decide how that IP is going to be owned, managed, and shared. And then finally build on previous VMCF work. So again, if you've received a previous fund project from us, you're going to need to show how this project goes above and beyond what you've done in that past project. So we've got some tips for certain sections of the portal for you. The project team, again, is where you show your ability to deliver the project. It takes some time to complete, so start the section early. You'll need to name the key people who are essential for the success of the project, particularly the placement if you're applying for a placement scheme. You need to provide a description of the key people's relevant expertise to the project, which may be a CV, but you can also provide it in another written format if a CV doesn't accurately capture someone's expertise. For the budget needs to all even out. So the income for the project is going to be the MB funding plus your co-funding, as Imogen described. The total expenditure for the project needs to equal the total income. The work program is where you can show us the clear steps that will lead to the delivery of your overall objectives. It's structured with one overarching impact statement, which is a description of the high-level impacts or outcomes of the work program. Under the impact statement, you need to have one or more research aims. These are measurable objectives, such as disseminate findings to community. Then under each research aim, you'll need one or more critical steps. These are measured, defined events, not levels of progress. And they need to have delivery dates throughout the term of the project, rather than all just being delivered by the end date of the project. So if your research aim is disseminate findings to community, then your critical steps could be things like write a report on project findings, make an engagement plan, or host a hui to discuss project findings. If you have any questions, just give us a call or send us an email. We are happy to help. Don't suffer in silence, but also don't leave it to the last minute. So you'll need to identify if you have any conflicts of interest with our assessment panel members. They'll be the ones assessing your proposals. We'll publish their names on our website soon and send out an email alert when they've been published. If you're not signed up for our email alerts, you can do so on our website. You'll need to declare either a direct or indirect conflict of interest. You can find out what a direct and indirect conflict mean by reading our call for proposals. You'll need to identify your conflicts of interest in the proposal in one of the sections in the portal. But if you've already identified, or if you've already submitted your proposal and you identify conflicts of interest, just send us an email. And I'll pass back to Imogen now to talk about what happens after you submit your proposal.
So what happens after you submit the proposal? We gave a short overview below, but now we'll discuss the assessment process in more detail. Once you've submitted your proposal, we will assess it against the eligibility criteria. You'll need to have met all the criteria and we'll follow up with you if we need any clarification. If your proposal is eligible, it will be assessed remotely by our assessment panel members. They look at the proposal and give a preliminary assessment. Then the panel comes together in person or via teleconference, if we cannot meet in person, to consider the individual assessments and make funding recommendations to MB. This year, there are 10 panel members. The panel makes a recommendation to MB and our Deputy Chief Executive makes the final investment decisions. For successful proposals, we then proceed with contracting. MB may add a pre-contract condition for some proposals, which will need to be met before we can enter into a contract with you. This could be something like developing an ethics plan, making changes to your work program, or confirming your co-funding arrangements. If you are successful, we will pay you 50% of the requested funding at the start of the work program. This will go out when you sign your contract. The next 40% is paid at the midpoint of the project. You will need to submit a report to us on how your project is going, and we will release your payment when we assess and approve the report. The final 10% is paid at the end of the project after we have approved a final report. Are there any questions?
Yep, so I will go through and answer some of the questions we have in the Q&A section. Just reiterating again, can the Connect be up to $250,000 for 2 years, the same as the placement? Yes, it can be. Is there a timeline for the outcomes of the project? So you'll need to answer in the proposal what the outcomes will be 1, 2, and 5 years after your project. What happens if there are any separate competing but overlapping projects? Do you do any matchmaking? No, we assess each project on their own and fund or don't fund them based on that individual project itself. Let's just go down, sorry. So regarding the budget, 10% contribution is on top of the VMCF funds and is added onto your budget. So again, the income for your project is going to be the VMCF funding, so whatever you request from us, plus your co-funding. So let's say you request $200,000 from MB, you provide $20,000 of co-funding, which can be completely cash, it can be completely in kind, or it can be a combination of both, then your total budget for the project is $220,000. And in your budget, you'll need to then allocate how that $220,000 is going to be spent. And it doesn't matter whether your co-funding is in kind or cash, as long as you're providing it. We've already said that we receive about 50 applications per year in the past. The people on our panel all have Vision Mātauranga expertise. They are mostly Māori scientists in universities, Crown Research Institutes, or members of businesses, and who have experience working with community. Is it possible to get a list of question sections that need to be completed in the IMS portal so we can develop our application offline for submitting copy and paste when completed? Yes, we actually will talk through a worksheet we've developed for you later on. However, just note when you do copy and paste, or some things aren't copy and paste, it's actually you have to go through and click certain things in, like the project team section. And when you copy and paste, the formatting is lost. So give yourself plenty of time if you are going to be copy and pasting. Another question about success rate, which I feel like we've already answered. We don't know this year. It depends on how many proposals we're going to be getting. Government departments are not eligible to apply for funding. So they cannot be a part of the project. So yeah, it needs to be between a Māori organization and a research organization, not a government department. And I think those are all the questions that we've got here. If you have any other questions, we can, is it appropriate to have more than one research organization, Māori organization involved in the proposal? Yes, absolutely, as long as you meet the requirement of having one of each. Can the outcome be mainly just benefit to one Māori-owned company? The outcome of the project needs to be building capability, and we want to see capability built within both partners as well. So we want the outcome to be beyond just single party benefit. We want it to be a multi-party benefit. And also great to see dissemination of findings as well. That's one of the things that the panel recommended from last year, is that they would like to see how we're disseminating the findings of our projects. So I think we will continue on now to the last section here, which is just a few final slides for you.
Great. So we have some additional resources on our website to help with your proposal development. We have a timeline to help guide you through the proposal process. We're already at step 3. You can find this timeline on our application support page. We also have developed a worksheet. This is an offline version of all the sections you'll need to fill in the portal. It can help you develop the content that you'll put into the portal, and you can easily share it between partners in your co-development process. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. It's just there to help if you want. This is not an application form, and you cannot submit this to us as your application. This is the end of the content we have for you today. Thank you very much for attending. You can contact us if we can provide you with any further information. Our website is a great resource and covers all of the content that we have went over today, but in more detail.